Well, this is my third update, my second day of painting my toenails with 7% iodine tincture, strong iodine tincture from Humco, Humco. Not DURVET, avoid DURVET, but Humco is the company to buy from, the brand. And it's available on Amazon. It's not out of stock or anything like that. It's available, at least as of this taping of this video. So this is the third presentation in which I want to tell you the benefits that I've been getting in addition to what I've stated already in the other prior two episodes. The first episode was the day I started, so that was day 0. And then the second episode was day 1, and then this third episode is day 2. Now I still have certain problems, as you just evidenced. The coughing, phlegm I get at the end of a meal. But I don't have to take so many cayenne pepper capsules like I used to. I used to take at least 6 or more. Now I just take 1 or 2. So I took 1 already, and I'll probably have to take another one. Probably 3 will do it. And the other benefits are still maintaining themselves, such as bowel movements. But now I'm noticing a new benefit that started last night and has continued on into today. My energy level has gone up, and my appetite has gone up. So it's kind of ridiculous. I keep eating. I want calories. I want food. I'm not eating any differently, except in one way. I'm eating fish more consistently. I've been a vegan, or nearly so, for like most of my life. And I didn't do it for philosophy, or save the planet, or I don't want to harm the animals. No, I just did it because I was sick. I was born sickly. If I had had my druthers, I would have rathered I had requested more fish on the table instead of all the meat, because we had so much meat. It was unbelievably sickening. I couldn't chew the stuff. I didn't like it, and I was only marginally tolerant of chicken, unless it was a very expensive grade of steak, like filet mignon, or what's the other one? I forget. All the expensive cuts that are soft. I couldn't chew. My teeth were so crooked because I'm congenitally defective at birth. And I think the main organ that's affected is my liver, although there's probably a few others. And that affects my ability to digest food and process poisons, let alone nutrients. So I've had a hard problem putting on weight all my life, except for 2 occasions. Immediately after fasting on fruits and vegetables for 2 years as a teenager, I put on 10 pounds. I put on the weight I lost plus the 10 pounds in addition before I started the fast, and I kept that 140-pound weight for my 5'7 3/4. Well, now I'm 5'7 1/2, but at the time 5'7 3/4 for 2 years. And then I made the mistake of fasting again, and I lost the extra 10 pounds plus another 10, and I've been staying around 110, 115, 120 tops ever since. And here I am, 62. It's 40 years later. The other occasion was when I was taking a conditioning swimming class at a community college back around 1989. So that's a few decades, 3 decades. And I didn't even do as much as the other people in the class. I couldn't perform as much. I was weak. The girls were doing better than I was. It was a 3-day-a-week class, I think. Yeah, 3-day-a-week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I only showed up 2 out of those 3 days, sometimes only 1. Yet, after 6 weeks, I started putting on weight. It was so ridiculous. My appetite was so humongous, I had to eat like crazy. And the weight I put on was swift. No sooner than I started to put it on, the class ended early. oh, we're being nice. We're going to let you out for it's Christmas break is coming up, and aren't we nice to you? And I came and I went to the teacher and I complained, you're not being nice. I depend on this. Sorry. So that was the end of that. And I never went back, and I never kept, I didn't know, I could have gone to a local pool, right, at a local park. I didn't even, I was so insulted. I get insulted easy. Um, But there's a third benefit I'm noticing. Those of us, and there aren't too many, I hope, thank goodness, but there are some of us who have been abused during our, childhood, young adult life, all our life, simply because we let it happen. I was born weak, so I didn't have really the wherewithal to put up a fight for more than about 2 seconds. And then I would implode and feel so awful because I wasn't up to it, really. So it's uncannily, people who are abusers have radar, and they pick you out from the crowd. They know exactly who you are, and they do whatever they can to make a beeline straight to you and then start abusing you. It might just be verbal abuse, but they really know how to get to you, push your buttons and really make you feel awful inside if you take them seriously. The problem is the ability to attract them in the first place. And Charlie Lutz kind of pointed this out to me. Charlie Lutz is a person who I mention once in a while because he made a big impact on my life. I was a teenager when I started the practice of transcendental meditation, and I was very concerned I was doing something weird because I no longer was subject to depression very suddenly. So I had to go to the advanced lectures that he gave every Friday night at the SRM Center, the Spiritual Regeneration Movement Foundation Center at Butler and Santa Monica Boulevard, just west of the 405 freeway. It's a Masonic Lodge building, but at the time, and it probably still is, owned by a recording studio, and they used the bottom floor, or at least half the building, and we were using the other half. Well, whatever, at the time. We were renting the other half. So I went there to check out the people and make certain that I wasn't abnormal, because I was feeling very abnormal, feeling so happy. And I went there, and I looked and saw everybody was normal, so I thought, okay, I'll stick this out. And I did. For the first year, I went religiously every Friday night to ascertain whether or not the people there were normal, and they were, and so I kept it up. Otherwise, I think I would have stopped. I was so freaking out that I was not depressed anymore. Anyway, so being that I was 16 to 17, I was impressionable. I didn't have a father to grow up with. My mother ignored me. My big brother did not want to be a big brother, so I was pretty much ignored, left to myself, which I didn't mind. I didn't know what I was missing, but I didn't mind. So, because nobody was really abusing me, but nobody was helping me either. And I had no idea that I was born with a congenital defect. I just thought being sickly was normal, I hated it, but I didn't know what was normal. All I knew is I couldn't play with anybody who was normal. They'd wear me out, so I'd have to pick somebody who was more low-key, extremely low-key. Anyway, the only thing that corrected that up until several years ago was I had to be an extreme athletic person. I had to exercise and push myself and strain, and that seemed to help a little bit. And also be a vegan. So I would do everything I could think of. I would hike, I would take long walks, I would jog, I would rollerblade, I would bike, I would swim. Those were all the things I did, and I did them to whatever degree I could, even to the point of strain. Sorry, I don't want to stop taping, so I don't want to get up and get another cayenne capsule. And that kept me somewhat healthy. Somewhat. But not as much as those two instances I described to you, which were effortless in terms of their consequence. Well, now here's this third instance. Well, I'm doing something so simple and so effortless, and I don't even have to do it twice a day. You know, I started out twice a day, now I just do it once a day. And it's amazing what it does. It's amazing. It's truly amazing. So this third benefit I'm trying to describe, because Charlie Lutz, one of his lectures, he stated something to the effect that, you know, try not to no. What he was stating was he was making an allusion, a loose correlation. He spoke very often in metaphors, so he was always creating correlations, even without making a point to point them out. But he was doing it anyway, just by the fact that he wasn't being explicit. He was saying everything in terms of metaphorical language. He wasn't trying to be explicit, obviously. Because he learned from prior experience, it's better that way, because if he came out and actually said to somebody, you know, gave them advice, especially when they didn't ask for it, they would be in worse shape than before. There was this one lady who came to the meeting, and she was so depressed. She was sitting in the front row, and when he asked her what was going on, she said, well, my son just died, and I'm very sad. Well, he was a healer. He actually healed people. And he took away her sadness and her grief, and lo and behold, she was more shocked that she no longer grieved. And she was quite, not only confused, but a little upset, to put it mildly, because, you know, hey, I should be entitled to grieve, right? You know, but she couldn't. So he said, never again. I'm not doing that again. We shall be so lucky. We should have his kinds of problems, right? Oh, God. Anyway, life should be that good. Well, they will be, eventually. Just not maybe this moment. But for me, it's already improving in this one area. So, because what's happening is, when you're an alcoholic, such as I've been for probably my whole life, in the sense that, you know, I stay away from alcohol because I can't. I'm so sensitive, I can't tolerate it. In fact, I went to my cousin's birthday party. His wife, you know, my cousin-in-law, and there were a lot of people there. They were all drinking. All the windows were closed. And by the end of the evening, when I had to drive myself and my mother home, I was a little woozy. I had a hard time staying straight on the road. I had a really hard time. In fact, I was tempted to pull over and rest. But I couldn't let her drive, my mother, because she had been drinking, and she was in no condition to drive. Yet I was barely I couldn't even handle the car. Just by inhaling the fumes, the exhalation of everybody's breath, was enough to make me tipsy. That's how sensitive I am. But I'm sensitive for a reason, because my liver is shot at birth and taxed on top of which, because it cannot handle ammonia, and so the candida flourishes, because candida lives not just on carbs but on ammonia. They have to get their nitrogen from a source, and they don't get it from protein like we do. They get it from ammonia, and ammonia is produced by parasites in the body. Ammonia is not produced by the body. The body only produces urea. But to accommodate the millions of aeons of years that we have lived with parasites, the liver has developed the ability to process their waste, the waste of parasites, and turn it into urea so that our kidneys can get rid of it. Otherwise, our kidneys can't, and the ammonia just sits there and feeds the yeast like crazy, and we become drunkards. And that's what I've been for just about most of my life. And as a natural, alternative health-minded individual, I had no desire to do anything extreme. And it seemed the only way to cure the problem was to drink, or take alcohol in some sense. And I don't think the alcohol content of this protocol is having that much of an impact. It's obviously going to have some, because alcohol is going to subdue, because alcohol is the waste product of candida, and it's a negative feedback situation when you get, if you're sitting in your own urine, are you going to have much appetite? No, I don't think so. In fact, if anything, you're going to become hostile, especially if you're drinking beer. And that's why they stopped selling beer at football games, because the guys in the stands were not taking breaks to go to the bathroom. They were peeing right there where they sat, or maybe they put it in a cup and then the cup spilled, and so we've got pee all over the place. They're drunk, and then they start and get into riots. This was around in the 1980s decade. It was a big news thing, and then so they changed the rules of when and where to sell alcohol during the games. I don't know what the rules are now, but at the time they made a big deal about, we got to stop selling beer because we have riots. They don't even, the people in the grandstands don't even wait till the end of the game to start the riot. So, and they're on the field, this is disruptive. We want to play a game here, So it was a big deal. Anywho, so obviously you're not going to conduct yourself in your normal manner if one of the factors is you have to live with your own waste. Nobody wants to live in a garbage or even near a landfill. Nobody wants to do that. So it's no different for parasites and candida. For yeast, they don't like to live in their waste product either. And so there's a nice cozy synergetic relationship between yeast and parasites, in which the parasites deposit the ammonia in the body and the yeast gets rid of it. And then a healthy person, the liver gets rid of it. So everybody is nice and hunky-dory and living cohabitively in a threesome in eons of time, until you get somebody like me with a bad liver, and then whoopsie, whoa, I can't handle it. Well, the fact is, I'm doing something now about it, and it just tickles me pink because I'm getting a life. Here I am, 62, and I'm getting a life I rarely had glimpses of, rarely, or else with a great deal of effort. Painting my toenails doesn't take any effort, obviously, and it's not even expensive. The stuff, you have to get it online. You can't find it anywhere at a retail local outlet. And wouldn't you know it, the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency of the United States, doesn't want you to buy iodine crystals by themselves to make your own tincture of iodine from its constituent ingredients, which are very few: ethanol, potassium iodide, nascent iodine crystals, and water. And that's all it is. It's an ancient recipe that dates back to the early 1800s, and it's been a remedy. Back in the 1920s, the AMA started branding, scapegoating people who sold Lugol's solution, which is basically that formula without the alcohol and a greater water content and less iodine content. And they branded them and called them snake oil salesmen trying to sell snake oil. And it was for that reason that the public started to acquire this distaste in its residing in its collective subconscious mind, that Lugol's is no good for you. So it's been a multi-pronged attack, and the latest ruling by the DEA as of a few decades ago, I think it was in the 1990s, that they started to outlaw the sale of nascent iodine. So now you either have to make it yourself, and it's not hard. You can even go and look. If you go to my YouTube channel, my very first one, DMSOI, as an acronym for DMSO plus I, DMSO plus iodine. How to make the stuff, how to combine it, chemically combine it. David, Mary, Samuel, Oliver, Independent, those 5 letters. Because back in the 1980s, I learned how to use iodine bath, to make it bath and iodine, because prior to 1984, there was no ammonia in anybody's tap water except for 1 or 2 cities in the country that had been doing that for 70 years or so. And I suspect one of them might have been Washington, D.C. Be that as it may, whether or not it's true. It went international. It went national, and now every major city uses ammonia to reduce the chlorine content in the tap water, and that renders an iodine bath useless. It just doesn't work. But prior to that, I was taking iodine baths, and it was great remedy for sunburn. I would just step into the bath. I would take iodine water purification tablets and dissolve them in the bath, several of them, maybe a dozen or the whole bottle, and stir it around and soak in the bath. And I had a second-degree sunburn. I stayed in the at the beach too long. I wasn't using any sunblock. And the next day, not only did the sunburn vanish, but it turned into a tan, and I had absolutely no peeling. This is the efficacy of iodine. And of course, Tullio Simoncini, an oncologist in Rome, Italy, has come up with a plan for using iodine tincture to burn off skin cancer. Doesn't matter how virulent the stuff is. If you've got 5 or preferably 7% iodine, you can just keep painting it until it falls off, and it may not fall off completely. It may have a reduced size, but you keep doing that, and eventually it's gone, and you have no scarring either. Talk about a poor man's treatment instead of laser treatment. It's unbelievable. Iodine has tremendous curative properties, and it's amazing the Drug Enforcement Agency wants to classify it as a drug. I mean, I understand the rationale, but it's so bogus, because it's penalizing the rest of us, all because they claim drug manufacturers who make, illicit drugs, who make, what's it called? I forget what it's called. Cocaine. I think it's cocaine. There's a step in the procedure where they use nascent iodine. And anybody who knows even the smallest amount of chemistry knows that the law doesn't stop them. They just make their own from scratch. They can buy potassium iodide and change it into iodine crystals, and voila. So who gives a shit that it's now illegal to sell iodine, all because of the cocaine manufacturers? The rest of us don't get to have it. It's obviously, it's a subtle, roundabout way of not admitting the real reason why they don't want us to have it. So you can't get 2% iodine in your local pharmacy, let alone 5 or 7. And 2% is dissolved in water, which is not as good as the 5 or 7% dissolved in ethanol, because that penetrates more readily than does water. Anyway, this treatment is unbelievable. It puts me back on track for having a life and enjoying it, which means A, I get more use out of the food I eat, and B, more use out of the supplements I take, so I don't have to take so many. Although I have to admit, the very first day I had to take a tremendous amount of calcium because I was having a lot of stomach cramps. And I usually take calcium for stomach cramps and magnesium for foot cramps. But after that first day of the shock of what I went through, the first and second day, now it's like it's unending benefits. It's just I keep it up and I get the benefits. And I don't have the horrible shock of a reduction of body temperature, a severe reduction, and I have to go to sleep and take a nap. Obviously, I was healing. My body was going under this rigorous alteration of its internal dynamics to such a degree that it required me to sleep through that period of adjustment. But now, there's nothing to adjust to. And I sleep better at night, too. I still get up in the middle of the night, but it's getting better. So, gone are the days when I was so much younger, when I slept straight through and didn't wake up once. And then I would wake up full of energy, which is the way I feel now. So I'm actually sleeping better. Amazing. Just one thing. And if you're the Mrs. O'Leary with the cow, who kicked over the lantern and Chicago burned down, you never know what the cause is until you find out what it is. In the meantime, you keep, what is it? Is it this? Is it that? What do I do to fix in my life so that I can be normal, or at least somewhat normal, enjoy myself? And, for 62 years, I've been clueless. How do I go about this problem when, God, I didn't even know what the problem was. It was causing me to be so miserable. But now that I don't produce alcohol in my body, I don't have the vibratory pattern of an alcoholic, which means I'm not looking to be beat up anymore. I have no need, no desire to look for, what do they call it? There's an expression, an idiomatic expression. In that you want to be beat up. I forget the expression. It's like you're looking for a beating or something, but it's it's I can't remember what it is, but it hasn't, obviously it hasn't helped my memory, so but that's okay. I'll survive. At least I have my ability to enjoy the moment, and the energy to go with it, and an appetite. Oh my God. What else can I say? Well, I'm really impressed. Obviously, I don't have to worry about showing off this to anybody because, quite frankly, up until now, I had nothing to be proud of to show off my ugly toenails. So now that they're so nicely painted with iodine, who gives a shit? They look brown and blackened. This is a step in the right direction. Up until now, I wasn't doing anything to improve them. So it's because I don't like to try things because I know it'd be a waste of so much energy. I like to work on inspiration. If I don't have an inspiration, then I go without a solution. I just keep suffering with the problem and trying to ignore it. But now I don't have to ignore because I'm enjoying myself. So what's to ignore, right? Oh God, this is unbelievable. So, I'm very impressed, and anytime I'll have an update, I'll keep telling you. But if nothing gets any better, if nothing changes, I won't do any more videos. Obviously, I don't need to repeat myself. I like to say things once, put it out there, and then the universe has been notified, and I don't have to give notification to the universe any more than that. Once is enough. If you don't hear about it, it's not my problem. If you don't come across these videos, I don't need to be around to remind you constantly. I don't need to be that. I'm not a town crier. Not in that sense. Once is enough. I'm an announcer, but not a town crier. I'll say it once, and that's it. I think that's everything. So my Tootsies, thank you. From the bottom of my feet, I thank you. And you may wonder why, but hey, why not? I gotta thank someone. Why not? It's good advice. I don't know. Worth a try. I'm gonna wear myself out. Good. I better. I gotta do something with all this excessive energy. Okay. I always wondered, watching what's that? The little kids they wave the wand. It was a big, popular, made in England movie series from the book series. God, I can't remember anything. Maybe a little alcohol did get into my bloodstream because I can't remember a thing. But it wouldn't improve my appetite. It wouldn't improve my bowel movements. It wouldn't reduce my flatulence. That's another benefit. And it wouldn't improve my creativity. You know how alcohol works. It's always a downer. Yet Charlie would say that it was the priests in ancient times who commercialized the practice of distributing alcohol to the masses, thinking, well, if we got some benefit from it, maybe they will too. See, what they would do is they'd take a teeny weeny little sip from the goblet before they would do Mass or Vespers or whatever, and they would do it to raise their consciousness. But it's when you take too much that it has the opposite effect, and then it becomes addictive. Well, so they were using it as a religious sacrament. which is not the same as its commercialization. So then immediately when I learned about that, I thought of Carlos Castaneda, and he was relating in his various ongoing book series about his autobiography of experiences with his master, Don Juan Matus, that sometimes in the very beginning of his apprenticeship with Don Juan Matus, that his master would give him a small amount of peyote or marijuana or something to drastically alter his consciousness, because he couldn't have done it any other way, because Carlos's mentality was very rigid and confined, and it couldn't be moved any other way. So Don Juan Matus had to shock him with various techniques, and sometimes he had to make use of drugs. But in the Native American tradition of using peyote and whatnot, it's always considered a sacrament, a religious sacrament. They don't do it just because they want to get high. In South America, it's a little different. They just want to get high. They have various, actually no, I'm referring to certain drinks they make, alcoholic beverages. But the drugs that at least the North American natives, and probably the South American as well, used were always done under the auspices of a religious ceremony or a religious odyssey. And there's another word, not odyssey, journey. A religious journey that the neophyte wanted to go through. And in fact, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Black Elk made use of certain drugs. But he was, I think, born clairvoyant, so in a sense, he didn't really need them. So it could be that this combination of alcohol and iodine, nascent iodine, when I say nascent, N-A-S-C-E-N-T, I'm referring to the diatomic form of iodine that is dark brown and is highly reactive, as opposed to the ionic form, such as potassium iodide, that is a salt of iodine. But the nascent variety of iodine, and I say iodine for a reason, because that's the correct the chemist's pronunciation of the term. We say chlorine, right? We say bromine. We don't say bromine or chlorine, because that would be confusing, because it sounds similar to chloride and bromide. So the chemists get it straight. It's just we screw it up. And I'm sure there's a political agenda behind that one, as well as the snake oil salesman. There's always some special vested interest that wants to control us, and they usually do it through language first. I learned that was the first thing I studied when I was a 5-year-old. I've been studying subjects all my life, and I hate to brag. Now I hate to brag. Usually I don't mind. I'm getting so humble now. See, this is correcting my egotism. I'm actually becoming a little more humble. But the first subject I studied was people, and how they used thought to abuse each other, and they would usually do it through language. They would abuse the language as an instrument of abusing one another. And that's one, I believe, is evidence of one abuse, is our mispronunciation of the word. The chemists have it right. They pronounce it chlorine, bromine, iodine, and there is no other way to pronounce it unless you're talking about the ion, and then you say chloride, bromide, or iodide. Anyway, enough of that. So, I've pretty much covered everything, and, I'm impressed.